ready to build resiliency, create a healthy lifestyle, and overcome adversity with a warrior mindset. This is Define the Fight with Mariah Prussia.
Hey everyone, welcome to this fine Monday morning. I know that it was raining outside, but the reality is our garden needed watering. So you know what? I'm going to just take it because you know what? We need water. We're predominantly made up of water, so why not? Let's embrace it because you know what? We're not going to melt. Joining me today talking about health. We look at the fact that health literally is wealth. And if you don't have it, you're really losing factors in the quality of what life is all about. So I have a great friend who is joining me here. She has over 25 years of experience in the fitness and nutrition industry. She's also a clinical exercise specialist, lifestyle and weight management, and so much more. And I have to get the personal components in because that's really what it is all about. She's a child of God, a light worker, mom of 3 amazing boys, and by all means, they are in great optimal health. She's a dog mom of Nike. And then you know what? Let's get a little laugh in here because you know what? She is the wife of Scotty the Hottie. So Renita Brannan, welcome to the show.
Mariah, I love you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I thought you would appreciate Scotty the Hottie.
You know, on Zooms when we're talking, I mean, why not? Because here's the reality is far too often we strictly talk business. We don't add personality into the mix and a little zest. And we're missing zest in life. As you can see, walking around in stores, walking out in, the community, there's not a lot of smiles. It's the serious face. And at some point we have to flip the switch and say, okay, game on, let's go. Let's have fun with this life because we don't know when our expiration date is. That's a fact.
That's right. Yeah. And, I always say the joy of the Lord is my strength, but, I liken it to like a dimmer switch. I feel like everybody's walking around with a little bit of a dimmer switch on. So my mission on this planet is to be the light, to share the light, to help people increase their light. And when they do that, it's literally like you said, Mariah, it's like their faces light up, the joy lights up, it starts to exude off of them. Hey, we can now measure this, right? We can measure energy fields off of people to realize that some people are, basically emanating more light, more energy off of their bodies. And my goal is to bring that back for everyone. Everyone has the capacity to turn up the light and get back in the game, like you said, and drop the hammer and take back their health because we know health is wealth.
It is.
And it is. I mean, we can talk all day about just that, right?
Well, and you're talking about frequency and energy. And the reality is there is a website that you can go to measure the energy of the earth on that given day. So you can see the frequencies and how they ebbs and flow. And a lot of people are like, I don't know why I feel off today. What is that? And it just comes down to energy and what and where are we absorbing it from? So we're absorbing it from the earth. Anything in the environment, the stimulation from our cell phones, our job stress, our relationships, all of those different components. So when we look at today's day and age, what we have to look at is putting on our armor, building our armor to be warriors mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And I know that you do that, yes, for yourself, your family, and everybody that links into that, plugs into that outlet of the Renita light. Because you know what? At the end of the day, we want to leave everything on the table. And how can we uplift others? Because we know that we're in a fight. We're in spiritual warfare right now. And the thing is, we have to link arms as light workers to really create change. And I know that you do that. So let's, I want to talk about a little bit about how you and I met, which was, 20 some years ago at a Pilates certification.
Lady Wellness. Was it called Lady Wellness?
Back in the day, it was.
I don't think it's there anymore in Fargo, is it?
No, it's gone. It's gone. It's now a thrift store.
Well, back then, I want to say this. I was coaching this Pilates certification, and I remember looking out, and there was maybe like 30 different instructors there. And I remember seeing Mariah thinking, this woman is going to change so many lives. She is such a powerhouse. Her form was excellent. Her just attitude was excellent. Everything that she was, emanating off herself was God's goodness and light and strength. And I thought, this woman is going places in life. And here we are, Mariah, 25 years later, right? Talking about light on your awesome show and teaching people how they can increase their light, increase their frequency to live their best life while they're on earth. I agree with that.
Well, and the thing is too, is like from starting when we came into the industry, there's been so many different shifts. There's been ebbs and flows. And I mean, that's stated from gym equipment to different styles of training to look at this supplementation, right? $1 trillion+ industry where it's like, okay, everybody thinks that they need to take everything that comes into play when the reality is we need to do a deeper dive on what is internal health and what that looks like. So when you look at from 25 years to present day, what are one or two of the main things that you've seen really shift within the industry?
I think that, again, supplementation is so huge. We've been trained very chemically, but I want people to understand today that we're just not chemical beings, right? I always give the example, like if you have a heart attack, Mariah, they don't just throw a bucket of water or throw some supplements, on you. They jumpstart you with like electric pads, right? So we're very electrical in nature. We're electrical beings. We're electrical magnetic. And we don't talk a lot about that because, again, the pharmaceutical industry has done a great job of talking about a pill for every ill and, the chemical that can change this or that in the body. But when you look at it, light matters. Frequency of light matters. And this is coming down the pipeline as we speak. For years, they told people to stay out of the light, cover themselves with that toxic sunscreen, which we knew was crazy. And bottom line is, we know that the more light we are exposing ourselves to, the better we feel, the better our hormones are balanced, right? Light is such an incredible thing, just even to balance the hormones, to increase the mood. Have you ever came back from an island vacationing, been in a bad mood? No. Why?
Wow.
You've been in the sun for 7 days, right? So we're just exposing ourselves to more of this frequency and this light. And I think now more than ever, we need this, basically this natural EMF. We always think of EMF as a bad thing. Well, the sun gives us some EMF, right? There's always going to be some frequencies that are coming from things. It's the NN EMF, the non-native EMF, which is posing the problems, the cell phones, the fluorescent lights, all of the frequency everywhere, these 5G towers that are located literally in every neighborhood now. I mean, those are the problem, right? But if we have enough of the right light, the right energy, we can really do an amazing job at combating, all of the bad stuff that we can't take down these 5G towers, guys, right? We can't get away from using our cell phones. I mean, you could, but you might be like a hermit. And so the bottom line is like, we're now reliant on these things. So we have to learn to adapt, and God has created us super wonderfully. So our body does a pretty good job of adapting, but there's things that we can do on the journey that would assist. So I would say light is number one, Mariah.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer, number two, in bringing electrolytes and salt back, because they told us for so many decades not to eat salt. And literally the hydrochloric acid that is increased from the salt production fights back so many different diseases of the gut, right? We need a certain amount of the right kind of salt because it has the minerals that we need to basically function. So when they told people to stop eating salt, that is where we saw cancer go through the roof. That is where we saw all of these digestive situations and issues go through the roof. So I'm a big believer in a good, wholesome Celtic salt, Redmond's real salt. You want a mineral dense salt. We're not talking white table salt that's on at the iodized that's at the gas station. But the bottom line is the iodized salt, by the way, that's not even true. With half hour after you open that iodized salt up, there's no iodine left in it. So again, that was just a total crime scene because there's not actually iodine in it. Has your jug of Morton's been sitting in your cupboard for longer than a half hour? Okay, the iodine's all gone out of it. All right, so we've got to be very, very diligent. And to probably the final thing I want to say is, I think it's really important. We've been spoon-fed for so long. The biggest shift I've seen, even since the crazy pandemic and all the crazy stuff that happened with all of that, I feel like the biggest shift I've seen is this empowerment where people are finally taking back their power with their health. They're not relying, on their physician to get them better anymore. And I'm not saying we don't need great physicians. We certainly do. And there certainly are many of those in the world. But most people are realizing, hey, if it's to be, it's up to me. And I got to take my power back with my health, with my children's health, what's in these needles? What's in all this stuff that they're telling us is okay, right? So I think people are now more than ever taking back their power. So you and I, Mariah, We spent 25 years in the trenches trying to get people well that didn't have time, energy, or money to do it. Now we're in a sweet spot where everybody says, just tell me
Let's
what
go.
to do.
100%.
I'm ready to rock.
Well, and they're actually
right?
starting to do the research. So when we talk about the Great Reset, that can be scary to a lot of people, but a lot of people right now are awakening to, hey, what I was learned or programmed to understand as a young child, now I'm learning is false. You're talking about salt, and I want to get this in before we go into a quick break, is literally I went over to my parents the other day, and then they saw on the news that, oh, salt is bad and it's causing these different things. So we're having a conversation about what is salt. So that is still being pushed, and the reality is in the United States, we have the means for all of the different things from gyms, money, all these different things. But why are we the most healthy, and why are we allowing from the FDA, which I still state the Food and Drug Administration shouldn't be put together. It should be Food Administration, and if you have a Drug Administration, then it's the DA versus the FDA. So we're going to come back here, Renita, and talk more about phototherapy and what that looks like here on Define the Fight. Welcome back to Define the Fight. And here we are. You know what? Sometimes we jump the gun. We get a little excited. We jump ahead of the music, and that's all right. Because you know what? We've got a lot of high energy here today, and I'm joined with my great friend, Renita Brannan, and she is literally a straight up firecracker. As you can tell, she's got energy that can go for days. But I want to dive into talking about phototherapy. You know, we've heard the term. It's kind of like the buzzword back in the day, organic foods to holistic. What does that look like? So breaking down, let's define, Renita, what phototherapy is and why it's important for our bodies.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say I'm so happy you're bringing this to the forefront because, Mariah, you do have a tendency to be 3 to 5 years ahead of the crowd. You're a little bit like me, and I'm in Bismarck, you're in Fargo, but you always seem to be ahead of the crowd, bringing new ideas, bringing new innovation, bringing new health to ideas and technology to your community. So thanks for that. Yeah, so phototherapy, you guys, a fancy word for light therapy. Now, phototherapy has been used, since the dawn of time, right? Like in scripture. The first scripture said, let there be light. Okay. So really the whole thing foundationally started with light, but in the medical and health community, they use different specific wavelengths of light to treat specific conditions. We've all heard of like the seasonal affective disorder where people are sitting in front of these different light panels, right? There's different blue light therapy now that people are using for acne and various things. Frequencies of light actually restore and regenerate the body. And the biggest example I can give is the sun. We go out in the sun, Mariah. We don't go out and open our mouth on our deck, right? We don't go out and sit out with our mouth wide open, waiting for the D3 to drop in. That light, those frequencies of light are hitting our skin, hitting our eyeballs, which that's another thing. We got to get off the sunglasses, guys. The sunglasses are screwing up our circadian rhythms, which is causing cancers and whatnot. But anyway, the bottom line is when the sun hits our eyes, hits our body, hits our skin, it actually is transformed in the body then to regulate hormones. It activates this vitamin D3 production in the body. It actually elevates something called melatonin, which is a nighttime hormone that all of us know we need to sleep better, but it's actually activated during daytime hours when your eyes are exposed to light. Who knew, right? So again, all of these different types of things are phototherapy. If you go to a chiropractor, there's a lot of chiropractors using red light panels or red light beds now. This is kind of a new upcoming thing. There's different kinds of lasers that have certain frequencies in the lasers that help to eliminate pain and various things. The coolest thing that has happened to me in the last 3 years is I came across a phototherapy technology that is literally producing downright miracles with people's health. That's all we can call it because, like you said, we can't argue with the FDA and start saying we're curing disease names.
No, you can't.
We're seeing downright miracles with people's health using a phototherapy technology called LifeWave. It's a patch. And it's amazing. It literally helps people to reactivate and regenerate different healing mechanisms and different regeneration processes of their body. It actually activates and resets up to 6,000 genes, Mariah, to a younger, healthier state. So you and I got to stay in the fight, right? So
we're try not to fight gravity as hard if we don't have to.
Right. So if we're able to put this amazing, incredible, affordable, simple to use technology right on our bodies, you can put it anywhere. The patch is actually systemic. So you can put the patch anywhere. It's as big as a quarter here. And you just basically take the back of it off and you can put it anywhere on the body. You can put it on your neck. You can put it under your belly button. You can, let's say you've got a sore shoulder. But this technology, the reason this technology is so cool, Mariah, is it's portable. It's so user friendly. It can be worn anywhere. And like I said, the results are miraculous.
Well, and the thing is too, is that it's non-transdermal. So you're not, in regards to medicine, so on and so forth. I think that's the key thing to understand is when you're looking at different components, you can go to a doctor, they're going to give you one thing. Well, then there's an adverse effect. Oh, well, then you need to take this to suffice over and, go to that adverse effect, right? So it becomes this whole circle where you're a hamster in a wheel of like, what is going to be thrown at me next? But I want to circle back in regards to stem cell reactivation. I want you to break down the fact of how many stem cells we typically have as a teenager and then as we age and why it's so important to reactivate the stem cells.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I knew very little about stem cells. My mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 11 years ago. We had considered taking her down to Tijuana, Stem Cell Centers of America down there. I think they wanted $10,000 for this injection. They call you and tell you it may or may not work. You might have to come back for multiple $10,000 injections. So we opted not to take mom to Tijuana. I always say the good Lord was listening though, because I was then investigating stem cells. Like, Mariah, you're so smart to focus and want to talk about this because most people have no idea what stem cells are or how they're working in their bodies. So our stem cells are literally the fountain of youth in our bodies. Our stem cells can become everything in our bodies. So the first cell that's created in your mother's womb when you're conceived is a stem cell, Mariah. That stem cell divides, becomes, of course, the nervous system. That nervous system then creates the heart, the lungs, the eyes, the kidneys, right? All of those organs are literally created from stem cells. And so when we're young, up until the age of 20, our bodies are pretty much stem cell making machines, baby. I mean, they regenerate, they're quickly, repairing. But what happens as anything with the aging process, that slows down. So by the age of 30, Mariah, and 30 is young, you've got a 60% reduction of the stem cell activity. 60% reduction. Okay. I think you're close to 50. Oh, you just turned 50. Did you just turn 50?
48. Girl, don't be aging me. I just turned 48. So we're the same 48. Age.
We're the same age. I always don't even remember how old I am because I feel like I'm getting younger every year. But, by the age of 50, Mariah, well, first of all, we're going to look like we're 20 by then because we're wearing this patch. But the bottom line is by age 50, you've got actually a 75% reduction of stem cell activity. So this is why people have typical effects of aging, Mariah. Like they've got, aches and pains. They don't sleep as well. They've got metabolic diseases, blood sugar is out of control, hormonal situations. And a lot of this is because the stem cells are not producing. By the age of 80, you've got a 95% reduction.
Which is crazy.
If you are not, it's just unbelievable. If you're not putting this on, you're just fading fast. You're just dying quickly. It's not called when you said the circle of the drug industry, I call that the circle of death. We're entering the circle of life over here with the patch, right? Thank God it's round. But the bottom line is with all of this, I want people to know that stem cells will go to the weakest area in the body and they'll begin to repair it. So everybody, that looks a little different, Mariah. Let's say that some people listening have a bad knee or a bad back, or their eyes have been struggling, or their kidneys are lower functioning. Stem cells are very miraculous because they will go to the area that needs the regeneration. Stem cells don't know disease names. People will say, what's it going to do for this? What's it going to do for that? Well, listen, a stem cell doesn't know the word cancer. A stem cell doesn't know the word arthritis. Stem cells just go to the area that has the most heat and the most degradation in the body, and they begin to repair it. That's how stem cells work. So the other thing that affects stem cells, in addition to the aging process, which all of us, have, the second thing that really affects these stem cells is chronic inflammation. I mean, think about this chronic inflammation. So, again, this is not an old person problem. I know young people that have chronic inflammation with their gut, with their brains, right? Anxiety, depression. Maybe there's some different types of injuries from the needles going on with people. Like all of this kind of stuff has been happening. And so, chronic inflammation eats up our stem cells in our body like a little Pac-Man. So imagine a Pac-Man just going in there and eating up all the stem cells. So here, most people I talk to, Mariah, and probably the ones that you talk to, it's both. They've got aging and they've got chronic inflammation, and they wonder why they feel like heck and they're not getting any better, right?
Right.
So everything changes the moment you put the X39 patch on. So as soon as you put this patch on, this patch has been clinically proven to regenerate a peptide called GHKCU. Now, when I started, I had no idea what that was. I had to Google it. GHKCU is a copper peptide that is known to do many things in the body. It helps, with pain management. It helps decrease inflammation, of course. It helps increase energy. But when you study GHKCU, this copper peptide, it actually activates and regenerates our stem cells in our body, our own stem cells.
Renita, let's circle back to the copper peptides, because we're going to go into a quick break, and I know there's a lot of great information on that. So come back here shortly, and we're going to talk about peptides, stem cells. You know what? Living your best life, because that is what it's all about here on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We're talking about a lot of different components when it comes to health. Typically, when you are looking at health, people are like, well, how many times should I go to the gym? What food should I change? And they're not talking about a deeper level of health and what that looks like. Renita is joining me today. We're talking about stem cells, and prior to the break, talking about peptides, right? So right now it's all about, hey, how can you educate, empower, and really uplift individuals in life? So Renita, let's dive back into peptides, stem cells, and the education piece, because it's really important for us. Hey, if you don't want to go out and do your research, then you better be listening to something that has some good research. So I'm going to have you dive in again in regards to the peptides.
Peptides are basically strings of amino acids that are chained together. So it's like proteins linked together. And we have, Mariah, the peptides in our body are amazing. They're amazing for healing, for regeneration. They do so much. But again, as with anything, as we age, the peptides get less and less, right? We're familiar with peptides, by the way. You've heard of peptides if you're a listener. Collagen is a peptide, right? We've heard of that word collagen. Another peptide that you've heard of is insulin. That's a hormone peptide, right? So we've heard of these things, and we know as we age, these peptides a lot of times are not functioning like they once were. But now, through phototherapy, through LifeWave, we have the ability to actually activate our peptides with light. So now let me tell you this, the peptide that's activated with the X39, Mariah, that's the patch we were talking about. That's the one, I saw miraculous results with my mother. Her voice came back, her gait came back. She's got no more tremor. Just amazing for anything neurodegenerative conditions at all. But let me tell you this, it activates a peptide called GHKCU. That peptide, if you go Google peptide, it's known as the holy grail of anti-aging. So if you're a listener today and say, wow, I need that, definitely, I would say put a patch on, because you can get these peptide injections, Mariah. A lot of places are doing them across the country. Peptide injections are coming in through a needle. Number one, they're costly. They're expensive. Number two, they hurt like a banshee. And so like a GHK Copper peptide injection, if you get it, it hurts for like 4 days. Like it doesn't feel good. The beautiful thing with this X39 patch is we're activating this peptide with phototherapy. Like you said, Mariah, this is not a transdermal patch. This is a phototherapy patch you put on. It reflects your own light, your own heat back into the body, and it activates that peptide GHKCU. Now, I do want to say that LifeWave does not treat, cure, or prevent any disease. We can't make medical claims, right? So we talk in the realm of miracles. But I'd like to list just a couple things that the GHK Copper peptide does, so people have a clear understanding. Yeah, so it rebuilds, tightens your skin. So people that have that loose, saggy skin, people don't realize that the GHK Copper peptide is a precursor to collagen production. You know how collagen is like you said, Mariah, people are drinking this stuff, taking these shakes, doing all this. The bottom line, and that's fine. You can continue to do that. I'm pro-health. I believe in health stacking, lots of good things for your health. But the simple thing that people could be doing is putting on this patch that activates this peptide that actually stimulates the collagen production. Right, that's really what we want. So it smooths the rough skin, gets rid of the wrinkles. We see a lot of those age spots, liver spots disappearing, which is awesome. But the biggest thing I want to tell people is, I know this sounds crazy, when you put the patch on, people that were regular sunburners are no longer getting sunburns. Like, it's wild. So copper peptide in our body is a nice regulator of I think remember that sunscreen copper tone,
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
There's a clue there, right? So the better our copper peptides are, it's like the more it enhances our skin, the better our skin looks, the better our skin feels. And again, a lot of people are saying, wow, I don't get sunburns anymore. This is incredible. Let's talk internal health, because we're not just lookers. You're hot, I'm hot, we're fit as fiddles. But the bottom line is, what is it going to do for people's internal health? And I always say, your skin's your largest organ. It's given clues, baby. It's given clues.
Is.
Okay. But the biggest thing I love about GHK Copper Peptide, it fights pain and inflammation. It resets 700 nervous system genes, Mariah. So for me, we know mental health is an issue in our country. Cognitive dissonance is real. So, from depression to anxieties of all ages. I've seen young people, their doctors take them off of their anxiety and depression medication because of this patch. True story. And again, I'm not making a medical claim, because individual results may vary, but this is what we've seen.
Right, your testimonials.
So many testimonials. And it's really because when you reset 700 nervous system genes, Mariah, imagine what happens to the body. We talk a lot about, remember when everybody talked about eat grapes, because, there's this ingredient in grapes that is so anti-aging, right? We've all heard of this. But the bottom line is that resets like 1 to 3 genes. Okay. We're over here resetting 700 nervous system genes with the GHK Copper Peptide. That's why people need to understand what this thing can do. It can totally transform their health and their lives. In addition to that, it actually repairs damaged DNA, Mariah. We've all got damaged DNA.
We all have damaged DNA, especially when we look at environmental and trauma or stressors or anything that we've had that has impacted and taken us out of homeostasis. Absolutely.
That's it. Yep. And so repairing damaged DNA looks different on every single person. For some people, it's going to be their skin. For others, it's going to be, wow, I feel like I don't have that residual cough that I had after 5 years of long haulers that so many people had. Repairing damaged DNA is going to appear different in everyone's bodies. I will tell you this: when you study the GHK CU copper peptide, there's a great book. I have it sitting right next to me here. It's by Dr. Lauren Picard. But this doctor said that the GHK Copper Peptide, when he did his research, this is like over 50 years ago, he did this research at the University of Minnesota, and he found out it was the number one thing for stomach cancer, Mariah, and it was the number one thing for COPD, that GHK Copper Peptide. And I'm thinking, why haven't you and I heard about it? We're forerunners in health, right? We're way ahead of the curve, and you and I hadn't been talking about this, right? So now all of a sudden we found out there's a way you could activate this peptide naturally, not an injection, but with light, with a phototherapy patch. And again, you're protecting the lung tissue after lung damage. So, we have seen incredible results with people that the chronic residual cough, we've had 5 people on our team get completely off their oxygen. It just amazing. Sounds radical. It's amazing, right? So again, everybody's bodies are a little bit different. And again, we don't treat, cure, prevent disease, but the bottom line is peptides are designed by God and put in our bodies when we're conceived. And what they do is they just help the body to restore and regenerate. And all we're doing now we've figured it out, we can activate these peptides with light. Praise the Lord. We don't have to get an injection.
Oh, well, and what I've noticed too, Renita, is, I've spoken about the fact of like my thyroid antibodies being through the roof, right? And that is shown in my blood work. But the reality is this: starting the patch, even on day 1. So again, it comes back to everybody's body and reception is different on when they're going to feel something that occurs. So keep that in mind. It's not, hey, day 1, boom, I should be feeling like I'm coming out of the floodgates. That's not reality, because everybody has different components that are going on with their body. And sometimes it's going to take longer to detoxify the body and heal. But for me, it was like literally I came home. So usually I'm up at 4:30 every single morning. And, whether it's radio, training clients, speaking, seminars, my farm, any of those components, I came home exhausted. And on day one, I put on the patch and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to take a small pause. I'm going to lay out in the sun for 5 or 10 minutes. I just want to recoup. Boom, I instantly had energy and I was out in the gym doing my second workout. I had put the patch on my 13-year-old son. And, he isn't like, hey, I'm going to go on blazing speed on the treadmill. But okay, Mom, I'm going to get in my time. I'm going to get in my distance. And all of a sudden he's at 9 point whatever running on the treadmill. I'm like, all right, Jace, you go get it, boy. So it's like, again, it's going to be different for everybody. I patched up my parents. I called my dad this morning and I said, Dad, I know it's only been 2 days, just seeing how you're feeling today. He goes, oh, I'm feeling good. He goes, but Mariah, I slept like a log. My dad does not sleep very well. So for him to notice that he actually had REM sleep is a big deal because he's in his 70s. He's 73. And, it's really hard sometimes for individuals to shut off their mind and get into that sleep. But what I know is that is also one of the great benefits is improved sleep. So as you are healing internally, you're going to see different ways that the body is going to respond. Now, I know that there was an individual who had called during the break, and I just wanted to make sure I gave her information. Now, if you have questions on the patch or how to get the patch, it's lifewave.com backslash define the fight. So by going to that website, you can look up the different information. But personally, I want you to reach out to me. My cell number is 701-306-0612. Because if you have questions, and instead of just looking online, it's nice to have a one-on-one conversation. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more, Renita, about some other concerns or, areas of health concerns that people can look at like, oh, hey, this is where I'm at. I really want to bring my health back to where it needs to be here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with the rock star, the one and only Renita Brannan. And you know what? Health is so underrated, and I think we just take it for granted. When you're talking about the different components of everybody has inflammation, whether it's anxiety, depression, all of those different components. When we look at 2020, I believe it was 154 million children that were labeled as obese. And when it comes to the year of 2030, they're anticipating that to be 258 million, which is extremely scary because we're not reversing the clock. We're projecting it and we're putting different things on our kids that doesn't need to be there. So we need to start getting into the driver's seat, grab that seatbelt, strap it in, and get ready to go. So Renita, I want to talk a little bit about, there's a couple different patches that are in there. And one of my friends actually, she had mentioned, hey, if this patch fixes my darn plantar fasciitis, I am in. So I know the ice wave is more for, I believe, acute injuries, so on and so forth. So I just want you to talk a little bit about the different patches, that kind of bullet point what some of those do.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I would say that the technology started, Mariah, 21 years ago with the Navy SEALs. So it actually started to increase their performance, to keep them alert and awake during Hell Week. And that was called the Energy Enhancer. And it actually worked through fat oxidation. So it actually burns up to 30% more fat during a workout than if you wouldn't have the patch on. So I love that. It gave the Energy SEALs great energy. And then from there, it was used by the United States female Olympic swim team. And our girl swimmers were breaking their own records in practice. And of course, went to the Olympics. So the patch is really an incredible technology and tool to help everybody. You don't have to be half sick and dead to want to wear these things. You can be a performance athlete and want to be better, faster, fitter, stronger. And like Jace running faster on the treadmill, or like my son Truett pushed up 315 the other day on the bench. Yep, boom. So, I mean, it's really for everybody, but let's just talk quickly about a couple of the different patches. We always want to start with X39. And again, you guys got to reach out to Mariah. You want to be on Mariah's team because she's going to answer your questions and help you out. You can't just you won't know what to do if you're not on the right team. And we have the fastest growing team in the entire world. And Mariah is so awesome at health and incredible at just loving people and making sure they're on the right track for their health. So make sure you're on Mariah's team. I'll say that. But first things first, if you're on here listening and you say, Renita, I cannot sleep, I'd say start with the X39, just like your dad did, Mariah. that just like I did. That's really what helped me on the fourth night. I actually was sleeping through the night again. Thank you, Jesus. So it just helps the body to really rest and restore and rejuvenate. So always want to start with the X39. That's the most important patch. That's the patch that's going to do the most for the most amount of people listening and watching today. The second one I would say is anything autoimmune related. So if you're on here and you have anything autoimmune, we know Hashimoto's, like you mentioned, is also autoimmune. So I'm expecting to see great results with your numbers as well, Mariah, as this thing progresses. But anything autoimmune related or long-term chronic inflammation where your body's been caught in that cortisol driven state, right? Cortisol is that fight or flight hormone. It's like you walk into the garage. Imagine if your car is running and there's a brick on the gas pedal. What's the first thing you're going to do? Take the brick off the gas pedal. So many people need to take the brick off the gas pedal of their cortisol because it's been firing out cortisol for decades. And when your body is firing out cortisol like that, it cannot heal. There is a reason, Mariah, when we go into the ICU in the hospital, everyone's whispering and there's no TVs on, right? Because we need to bring the body from that sympathetic state back to the parasympathetic state to be able to actually restore and heal. And so we have a patch that's called Eon. And so if you're listening to this, you've had chronic inflammation, anything autoimmune related, I would definitely do X39 in combination with Eon. No question about it. That is going to be a game changer, an absolute game changer for your health, you guys, because the Eon pulls that body back to that parasympathetic state where it can actually restore and regenerate within 15 minutes of putting that patch on. So now you got that Eon pulling the body back away from cortisol, back to homeostasis, like you mentioned earlier, right? And then we put the X39 on, and that actually goes to work at regenerating that copper peptide, which again does a whole host of things. So the bottom line is the combination of those two is great. If you're on here and you've got chronic pain, you say, Renita, I've had chronic pain, I've injured myself. There's a great patch that David Schmidt, the founder, created called Ice Wave. It is like a magic trick. I swear to God, it's like a magic trick. I had a medical doctor friend of mine take it to a Christmas party, and he was going to show all of his friends. He called me after the party.